Hello, Marie.
Hello, Bertrand. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Hello, guys. We're happy to see you for this 5th episode
Yes.
of our favorite Paris places. It's a little bit gloomy today.
Yeah,
a bit chilly.
it's November, but we have some Christmas decoration already, so
Yes.
it's going to be more fun than a usual day.
And we have quite an amazing program for today. A food market,
Yes, beautiful food market, the best of Paris.
the River Seine,
The end, of course. Yeah, it's always there. So.
and maybe a shop that most of you like very much that has reopened last Saturday, a bookshop.
Yes, yeah. I hope we can go inside.
We will do everything we can to have you enjoy this hour of freedom we have today. And we are starting right now with the church behind us.
Yeah. Oh.
Church Saint-Medard. Yeah, there's actually a food market that passes nearby. It's known as the Marché de la Rue Mouffetard. Mouffetard's food market.
Yeah,
It's quite famous.
that's my favorite.
And it's been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years because we were on the edge of Paris.
So we're going to see that just after, but already there is this amazing building just across the street. It seems like it's paintings of pigs and some wild animals from the hunting, probably. I don't know. It's look very Middle Ages. So.
Yeah, there seems to be a peacock.
And under you have one of the best cheese shops in Paris, on Rouet.
Marie, your favorite one is Laurent Dubois, no?
Yes, I have to confess. So that's my favorite. But so now we are in front of the church Saint-Medard, and I have to confess something, Bertrand. I actually never been inside this church.
You're kidding me?
Yes.
That one here?
Yes, that's the first time for me. If we go inside, so
Can we go now?
yes, of course, I want to.
It's not the biggest church or the most famous one, though it's a church built at the end of the Middle Ages in a style we call flamboyant, Gothic flamboyant. So you be ready for a lot of windows that have the shape of flames.
I can't wait. You can see some broken arches, so I assume it's inspired by Gothic.
Yes, it is. It's the
it's
Gothic
still
toward
Gothic.
the end.
Okay.
And flamboyant, if you turn it around.
That's what you were saying about the windows.
The stone creates shape of flames that are obviously
Indeed.
pointing to the sky. That's where the term comes from, flamboyant, from flames. So it's a nice parish, like there are many around, and it has quite an amazing history. At the turn of the 1700s, there were people who, especially merchants living in the neighborhood here, who were going to the cemetery in the back of the church at night, and they were facing a state of, I don't know, I'd say trance.
Yeah, you
So,
can say trance.
Moving a lot, going crazy, and supposedly they were getting cured from diseases, and so this church became famous for these miracles by the convulsion of the churchgoers.
So you mean it was people that were having sickness, like coming in the cemetery, having those trance, and then somehow being cured?
Exactly.
Wow. Okay.
And that became such a thing that the king, who back then in the 1700s no longer lives here in Paris but in Versailles, had the cemetery closed and he was forbidden to go in. And one guy from the neighborhood supposedly put a board at the entrance of the cemetery saying, by order of the king, God can no longer perform miracles in this cemetery.
Is the plague still there, or
the
no?
plague is no longer there, and even the cemetery is no longer there. The density of this neighborhood has made a lot of churches disappear and a lot of cemeteries.
Okay, so this is the only place where we can remember those weird miracles that happened in the cemetery. So, yeah, it sounds more like a voodoo kind of thing.
Yes, and it's interesting because we are in the 1730s when this happened, and clearly there's a difference between the elite in France that is reading, who is reading the philosopher of the Enlightenment, the Encyclopedia. So it's an age of reason, but within the people there are still a lot of habits, traditions from centuries past.
Before
so
that,
a lot of
yeah.
mysteries are still being celebrated. But you know what makes me go in trance state?
Tell
Food.
us. Of course.
The Mont d'Or cheese you bought a couple of weeks ago, I'm still...
You're still dreaming about it?
I'm still dreaming about it. And the Rue Mouffetard is quite famous for its delicious food shops.
So we are now by Rue Mouffetard. So this street is pretty long and it's known in the Fifth to be almost pedestrian. You will see there is no cars passing here, so it's very, very lovely to be here. And during Christmas time, it's also neat because you have many decorations. So we are during the day now, but at night it's getting even more decorated and full of lights.
Yeah, you'll find everything: shellfish,
Fishermen, poissonnerie. We're going to do some class here, some French class. So let's see if you guys have the right vocabulary about things, and especially because during winter time we are eating a lot of Saint-Jacques.
Yes.
So Saint-Jacques, you call that, yes, scallops. We call that Saint-Jacques from the saint.
Saint James.
Saint James, that is in French Saint-Jacques. And what can I show you? Oysters. It looks delicious. So everything here is very fresh, coming probably from
The Atlantic.
Normandy, Brittany, the near sea. And now we're continuing to to the butcher place, because you know that in Paris we are crazy about roasted chicken. Now that's kind of the Sunday roast to us, but it's the chicken roast.
It's quite a Christmas dish also to have the
Also,
chapon
true.
stuffed with chestnut cream.
We're not big fans of turkey. We are more, like you say, we're more chapon or different type of poultry.
Chapon is a massive chicken.
As you can see, there is another fromagerie, so another cheese shop just aside of the one we just saw.
And just to tease us, they've put Mont d'Or everywhere by the entrance.
Of course, Mont d'Or and probably raclette cheese because that's the season to melt cheese.
Are we going to do a raclette, Marie?
I think we're going to do a raclette very soon, yes. You guys going to see us probably, maybe we can do a live or something about us eating raclette.
That will be a very long live.
I can see a sign here, and that's maybe a sign from the time when the river was there, à la bonne source. It looks like some, so two little characters just pumping some water from a wheel. So you talked very quickly about La Bièvre.
Yes.
So it was a river. Was it a river to drink? It's still a river, underground river.
The thing is, the fifth district nowadays is rather pricey to live in, but it hasn't been the case for long. Until the Second World War, actually, it was very, very, very cheap to live here. We're going to talk about poor writers living here because it's cheap. And it was also a place of craftsmanship, especially on the River Bièvre that was passing just down the street, because what happens when it rains, and in Paris it can rain, the water then just roll down the hill.
Yeah, because we can't really see it on the camera, but the street is pretty steep, huh?
And so there was a lot of artisanry done by this river, and especially for the beer in here, it was especially tanners. So tanners was not the most delicate job in terms of what it gives to the river. Clearly, you have tons of dead animals.
And pollution, so you can't drink the water.
No,
definitely not.
That's why you need to use a spring to get the water much deeper. But the water of the Bièvre itself was so disgusting that it was decided in the early 1900s to have it covered, and it is used as a sewer system.
I'm sorry, I'm listening just on one side, because on the other side of you, Bertrand, I can see that, and
how can I compete?
I know.
With that.
Okay, so yeah, you guys can notice that we have here all the French pastry from the Paris-Brest to la tarte tropézienne.
Here, there.
And we also have the millefeuille, which is also called Napoleon, I think, in US. And of course the eclair, I mean, yeah, everything we love. And this is a
I don't know
bakery.
why we always film these tours around 11 noon, because then we're starving during the whole tour.
Yeah, it's true.
Christmas lights start to be there.
Yeah, so
I've seen a lot of purple and
do you think that's the
pink
new...
for this holiday season? Not the most traditional, but I've seen it in many places. I guess that's
very...
going to be the color of this year.
Yeah.
Bring a little bit of joy and hope.
Yeah, it looks
This
like a
crazy
dollhouse.
Yeah.
Do you gonna decorate your home,
Yes,
Bertrand?
actually, we're going to buy a Christmas tree next weekend.
So in France, it's not as big trees that we can find in US, right? I mean, usually we have tiny apartments in Paris, so tiny trees.
Smaller than I. So it's not big tree.
But are you gonna decorate just the tree or also the entire home where you live?
Well, I have a 1.5-year-old, so if I put decoration everywhere, they won't last for 3 minutes.
She will get them.
She will get them, or ask for them. She will find her way to get it. So I think we'll stick to the tree and to the little, I don't know how you would call that in English, but you know this little calendar where every day you eat a chocolate?
Yeah, the Advent calendar.
Advent calendar. So we have bought her our first Advent calendar.
Aha.
And it's hard to tell her that it's just one chocolate a day.
So talking about chocolate, there is one here, chocolatier. So that's the type of chocolates that are in your calendar, or?
Yes, exactly. Like the little ones there.
Oh, and I can see a specialty. We're going to do probably a special Christmas tour. And I can see a specialty here that is wrapped in gold. Those are marron glacé. So it's a kind of specialty. It's very sweet and
Very Christmassy.
Very Christmassy. And so, so it's chestnuts in sugar. But that's a very famous specialty in France.
I miss doing food tours, Marie. I miss giving food tours.
You know, with me, it's always a food tour anyway.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
so just not far from here, we have the wine, but another cheese shop also. It's crazy. There is many cheese shops in this street. Only in 5-minute walking distance, we saw 4. Another wine shop here.
And the owners, they seem to be happy, so it's not too much competition.
I should move here, Bertrand.
Didn't you live in the 5th at some point?
I did, but not in
But on
this
the other
part.
side.
Yeah, I maybe I'm going to show you later where I used to live in the 5th. So yeah, it's very animated on this side of the street. Now we're going up the hill, and we're going to go to Place de la Contrescarpe, that is known for cafes and restaurants, but also where Hemingway used to live.
Yeah,
So,
among many others. Yeah.
so let's go there. So we talk about Hemingway, and Hemingway used to live just right there. I'm going to show you the house where he lived at first with, so it's Hadley, his wife, and his little boy, Bambi. And so when they lived here, he was still a journalist at the Toronto Star, so the
Canadian?
newspaper in Canada.
Okay.
And so he was paid in dollars, which in Paris in the 20s, that was the best, because here it was pretty cheap to live in Paris. So he decided to settle here on the hill, on the Montagne Sainte-Geneviève, probably because he was inspired by all the writers that used to come here before him. And now, let me show you the little sign here saying that this is where from January 22, August 23, Ernest Hemingway lived here. And the sign also say that this neighborhood was probably his favorite, and that was also the place where he started writing with his peculiar style, and something that is quite dense, but at the same time with some kind of, I don't know, some kind of lightness, let's say, into it. And there is this sentence saying that this was the Paris during his young ages, where he was poor but very happy. And it's true that here, still today, so in 2020, so 100 years after, it's still a place to have fun at night. You have a lot of pubs, you have cheap beer, so it's great for students still today.
I've been here quite a few times back in these years.
I'm sure, Bertrand, myself, most of the guides, we've been here during our youth when we were poor and very happy.
So we're coming back.
We're coming back, of course. Other writers used to live here. We have Descartes. You probably know the philosopher Descartes used to live just there. Also, James Joyce used to stay a little bit on this street as well. But we're going to see another house where Rimbaud and Verlaine, Ernest Hemingway, lived also in this building. In reality, was working here writing. This was an hotel at the time in the 20s, and he had a room where he could work. He decided to stay here probably because Verlaine, the poet Verlaine, before him used to come here and write as well in this hotel. Verlaine is known in France, not so much abroad, unfortunately, but he was one of the greatest French poets of the 19th century, and he had, let's say, a troubled love affair with Arthur Rimbaud. And Arthur
Who's
Rimbaud,
the young boy here.
Exactly. So this young poet that is a genius lived also in the 5th district, so in this district, but he decided to just go in Morocco when he was about 30 years old. And at 30 years old, so when he was leaving France for Morocco, he just decided also to change completely his life, be done with poetry, but he's still one of the greatest poets in France. And when
even though he wrote for a couple of years.
Yes, just for a couple of years, he just made the revolution in poetry. And in the 6th district, so maybe we're going to see that on the next video, in the 6th district there is this poem from Arthur Rimbaud that is covering a wall
exactly
by the Luxembourg Garden, and it's a great
tipsy boat. How do you say the bateau?
You can say the tipsy boat. It's a nice way to say it.
And this Rimbaud has been a great source of inspiration for many artists, including Bob Dylan, for instance.
Yes, a lot of rock stars.
It's that kind of a refreshing wind of freedom on French poetry, which back then is very classical. And
he was a rebel, not just for literature, not just for poetry, but also for all the academy. He was not some part of the elites of the bourgeoisie of Paris. He was
an outsider,
boy, and he didn't really respected the rules, let's say, and especially not the rule of just how to behave in parties, for example. He was often saying,
he was a bit eccentric, doing too much.
Saying whatever he was thinking.
You guys, if you want to know more, check the internet. You'll find tons of stories about Arthur Rimbaud.
So now we are heading toward the Pantheon. So you all know this monument by now because it's probably one of our favorite big building in Paris.
Exactly, yes.
So, what can you tell us about this amazing building that is looking like a temple, but at the same time it's very sober, like you don't have windows or...
But the church was not finished until the French Revolution happened, so it actually was never consecrated as a church per se. And during the French Revolution, when the Catholic faith was abolished, it was decided to use that church and to make it a temple dedicated to the greatest heroes of the nation.
Now that's why on the main facade you can read some French sentence here saying "Aux grands hommes la patrie reconnaissante," so to the greatest men, nation is thankful. So this is for the heroes, right? This
Exactly.
is so we're talking about
writers like Victor Hugo, for instance. We're also talking about people from the French Resistance. We're talking also about scientists like Monsieur and Madame Curie.
Now in front of the Pantheon we have first those beautiful Christmas trees, and we have those two buildings. So one would be the town hall of the 5th district, Mairie du 5e arrondissement. Then you have an avenue that is leading us to the Eiffel Tower at the end. Yeah. And on the right, one of the university I mentioned before, this one to become a lawyer or a judge, so la faculté de droit.
Or a guide. I actually studied here for a year.
You did? I think Oleg too. So this neighborhood is probably the one that is the most cinematographic, let's say, in the sense that it's used in a lot of movies about Paris, probably because one of the most beautiful ones. Here it associates with some movies, but also music, especially jazz. Here, for example, you have one of those vintage boutiques of Paris where they sell records, vinyls. And here and on the other side, it specializes in jazz, but you also have classical music as well. And if we continue going down this hill, you also will get the jazz clubs that were famous in the 20s to the 50s, where all the big stars of jazz coming from US came here in Paris to perform and to offer their music to the world. And to me, I love jazz, so to me, the Latin Quarter is associated to those amazing artists. So I'm talking, I don't know, Armstrong or Gigi Gillespie, or I mean, all those Coltrane, everyone from the time.
I love this little neighborhood here. Don't you have a friend who has a cafe there?
Yes, La Méthode is just right there in the corner. It's also used in a lot of movies.
Yeah?
Just because in front you have some space, so probably all the technical stuff with the light and to take the sound, they can settle here. And here, so it's just perfect. It's this little cafe, very French, very typical Parisian, on the middle of the hill of Montagne Sainte-Geneviève. And yeah, so the cafe is here, and they are actually living just above. The parents of my friend are living just right there.
So it's not only in Emily in Paris that you have friends who have a restaurant in Paris and they live above.
Yeah, of course, you have to be a true Parisian to have a cafe in Paris. So in front of this cafe, you have École Polytechnique, and that's one of the institutions of the Latin Quarter. This place, it's a school, as you can see, École, but it's not a school for kids, it's for already adults, people that had their baccalaureate, so their last diploma after high school. They can apply here, they can be selected and become an engineer of École Polytechnique. This is the top class engineers in France. If you are here, you're considered for 4 years as part of the state. That means you are having the same status as militaries, and you can do the défilé, you know, the Bastille Day. There is this Champs-Élysées défilé, the parade, where they're showing all the greatest people, let's say, and also the students of Polytechnique, they can be part of the parade.
And they have quite a classy uniform.
They do have a classy uniform. And so at the end of their studies here, they have a number of years that is dedicated to France. So they need to be part of the national programs, for example, for space research or whatever project that France has at the time. And after those many years, they can change and they can be in private companies. They can also go abroad in US, in UK, wherever they want to go. That's the deal.
We as a community, we pay for their studies.
Yes.
Because it's not just that they have free tuition, they are paid. They have a salary for studying, but then they owe years of service to the state, for which they are well paid, of course.
Exactly. And this is quite a special institution for France. It's part of what we call les grandes écoles. So we have few of those schools that are considered the top of the pop, let's say, in the studies. They are all having of course, a building here in the Latin Quarter. This, I told you about the elite of France. When you want to be into politics or something like that, into the high administration of France, you probably at one point pass through the Latin Quarter.
Yeah, it's a little rite of passage for
yes, exactly.
French students.
But now we're getting back to the more normal life, let's say, of the Latin Quarter.
So you mean we're no longer the elite?
We're no longer the elite. We are getting also to the part where you have a lot of bookshops, such as this one, L'Harmattan, which is known to be for publishing work of students when you're doing your thesis, for example, when you're into your PhD. This is where you can be published. But there is also someone from our guide team that was just published in L'Harmattan, and not for university work, but for poems.
Yes.
I'm talking about Marion.
Yes, that's true. The book is just out. Love poems.
Exactly.
And she will soon publish a record about love songs.
Mm-hmm.
We all need that.
So,
love poems and love songs, right?
yeah. Well, especially in the Latin Quarter, we talk about poets and Rimbaud and Hemingway, so all those writers that at one point lived here. So we are mid-hill, and you see that at the end, the bottom of the hill, we have two towers popping.
Ah, Notre Dame.
So should we go down the hill now?
Yeah, time passed by, so we got to run down the hill and meet you guys out there. Marie,
Yes.
there seems to be a prison door right here.
You know, it's not a prison. I know it seems like it, but no, it's a club.
How would you know that?
I used to live in these streets when I was a student.
Yes.
I was the perfect cliche of the poor student having a tiny room just under the roof and being cold during the winter time and having cockroach in my little studio.
Cockroach?
Yes. I know, it's disgusting, but that was just you know.
Just to
What-
make it more
just- yeah.
romantic and local.
Exactly, that was my door on the summer.
Which
And so-
one?
yeah, just this one here.
Well, that is a club. It's written right on it.
And the
So
club,
you are living above a club.
so you had two clubs. So this one is Le Privé and the other is the 8. And those are, adult club. I don't know exactly what's going on.
Marie, you can tell us.
No,
It's past 7 p.m. There's a club above which you used to live, which is called the Private, and we are in Paris. So
Yes.
you can use metaphors if you want, but it was not a dance club.
Or maybe they were dancing, but let's say the only time I saw people, you know, popping up out of this place was they were beautiful ladies,
Yes.
far too young to be with the man they were with.
Oh my God.
That's what happened here.
But look at the name of the street.
Rue des Anglais.
Rue des Anglais, Street of the Englishmen. So they were probably old Englishmen
I think
flirting
they
with
were
young.
Russian, but
You
let's
think
not
that-
say that.
Yeah. But a typical street of the Latin Quarter, you'd say.
Yes, indeed. And it's located just at the side of the park that I love the most, with the oldest street of Paris.
Yes.
And at the same time, not very far from this bookshop that we are back to see, of course, Shakespeare and Company that we love.
So guys, we're filming this tour on Wednesday, December the 2nd. That means that most shops, including bookshops, have reopened last Saturday. So we're quite excited because we're now allowed to buy not only food, but whatever we want, including books. And so it's the first time that we're going to see Shakespeare and Company since it has just reopened.
And even La Boulangerie
Oh,
Bertrand,
yes,
so
of
your
course.
bakery is open.
My-
I like
my
this boulangerie
bakery.
for that reason.
For the name,
No.
or for the big fat
Of
meringue.
course, I love it because it's Bertrand Bakery.
No, that's
But-
why you like, yeah.
Of course, but for another reason, you see here, it's meringue
That are crazy.
they are huge.
Look at it's just for you guys to see the size, you know. It's a meringue that is
insane.
it's as big as the head of my little darling baby. I'm sure Jeanne's head is a little bit smaller than this meringue. You eat that now. So the park, Marie, the little garden.
Yes.
You said it is the oldest.
The park itself, it's probably one of the oldest, true. But there is the oldest tree still standing in the middle of it. Alors, be careful.
Yeah, forget there are cars.
Oh, stopping. Okay, that's unusual. Paris. Merci. So this park is called. No, we don't care. This park is around the oldest church of Paris that is called Saint-Julien le Pauvre, and around it many different varieties of trees, species of trees, and one was planted here by the botanist of the king that was called Robin, and he took from exotic lands from very far. He took, apparently in his hat at one point, he came here with a tiny tree, very tiny one, a fake acacia, and they decided to plant it here, and it's still there, and that happened in 1610, so that was more than 400 years ago, and this is the tree I'm talking about.
It doesn't look to be too happy as a tree.
We are during winter time.
That's true.
It's true that being old, it's not exactly in the greatest shape.
Because what we see here is not a trunk, it's concrete, right?
It's concrete supporting the main
And that's the main trunk.
But during springtime, you will see he's still a young fellow. He's still holding it and being green, having the seeds. So this tree is still standing, and we think it's because a magical source so from here to there you had some kind of fontaine, a magical source in the Middle Ages where people were coming to cure any diseases they had, and we don't know if it's a legend, if it's true, if the water was special or not, but for sure the roots of this tree are going somewhere to get whatever it needs. So all the nutriments, all the minerals, everything it needs to be still in good health after 400 years.
400 years.
So I know that some people being in California might think this is pretty young for a tree. Some trees can hold to thousands of years, but in Paris it's usually 80, maximum 80 years.
80 years
for a tree. So this is really unbelievable.
400 versus 80, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there seems to be young lads that are popping out to the side.
That is the same
tree.
Exactly, yeah. from the roots. And it's located at the side of this church that is called Saint-Julien.
Pretty small church, yeah.
It is a small church. It's from
quite mysterious one. It's rarely open.
Very rarely, yes. And it's from the 1100s, so beginning of 1100s, before Notre Dame, that is just in front of us, before Notre Dame was built. So this garden, I love it also for that reason. We have one of the best views on our cathedral.
Yeah, with Notre Dame, the crane now, obviously. But the works are starting to do quite something. It's hard to see on screen, guys, but there are pigeons. But right up there starts to be consolidations of the roof, and they are almost done taking out the scaffoldings, the metallic scaffoldings that burned and melted during the fire that happened more than a year and a half ago. Mm-hmm. But it was very hard to detach this melted iron from the stones. So they are still at this moment where they are reinforcing the structure, but they can't build something new yet because they first need to get rid of this scaffolding that started the fire. But Notre Dame still stands, and so are we, right?
So now we can go to see the bookshop of Shakespeare and Company.
Yes.
Located just outside of this park. During springtime and summertime, the people working in the bookshop are coming into this park to perform some amateur theater.
Okay.
And because it's called Shakespeare and Company, they love to play one part of any Shakespeare play here in this park. It's just, it's romantic, it's quiet, it's just by Notre Dame, so why not using it to perform in a bit of art? Watch your steps.
The view is always stunning here. I love this park. In the springtime, it's full of blossoms. It's very, very charming.
Indeed.
But even on a grey winter day, there's a good atmosphere. Probably it's because of the magical spring you mentioned earlier.
I just love it. I just love this street here leading to Odette's beautiful little pastry shop. with little choux à la crème, the cream puff. And now here, the cafe Shakespeare and Company and the bookshop on the side. So I think it's going to be hard to film inside. So let me just tell you more about what is in this building of Shakespeare and Company. Here on the first floor, you do have a boutique. So it's really a place where you can buy any books you're looking for. They are all in English, which is in Paris pretty uncommon because we have mostly bookshops, of course, for French literature. Here it would be English writers, French writer translated in English. Whatever you're looking for is on the first floor. If you are going to the second floor here, you will go to rooms that are only to just enjoy, let's say, take your time, getting
take a nap,
getting your computer, maybe write a novel, whatever you want to do. Those are free spaces to stay for as long as you want. Of course, during tourist season, let's say May, June, it's pretty full, so it's not really quiet place to work. And then you have another floor above that one where we can't access to that floor because it's only for the people working in the shop. Few of those people, they are not Parisian, they're coming from all around Europe and the world, maybe from Australia, maybe from America, and they are writing their novel here because they are not just working in the shop, they also are students or future writers, and you can apply, anyone can really apply to stay here for a week, for a month.
That's why this bookshop is so popular. It's not just because it has books in English, but it's the whole spirit.
It's a whole spirit. So you see,
it.
It's really the idea of welcoming people in. So for the boutique, to stay just an hour and to stay for a few weeks. That's the idea. And at the side of it, the cafe that is pretty new with all the specialty from US, from New York, let's say, like cheesecakes, for example.
Fantastic.
So I really love this place. We did a literature tour with Christina.
I remember that, yes.
About this place, so you can, of course, look that video. And maybe now it's time for us to go in and to, just make a little shopping for Christmas time.
Parfait, allons-y.
Welcome. So here, to me, it's like going into paradise. It's like heaven of books, because it's not those common bookshop where it's, let's say, white and could be boring. Here, it's nothing like that. It's very atmospheric. You see, you have the plants over, and the house itself is from the 16th century. So there is this very special atmosphere in this bookshop that is unique in the world. And I'm a big fan of Harry Potter, so to me it's kind of a Harry Potter kind of...
It does look like you're going to buy a ward or...
And you can get lost in this bookshop. It's a tiny one, but it's so dense with everything. So I let you explore the bookshop itself. Comme ça, on pourra s'en servir si jamais on veut faire un truc sur la littérature.
Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Au revoir. Well, thank you Bertrand.
Merci Marie, thank you very much.
That was a great tour in the 5th district, and that reminds us the time where we were young and poor and students.
And guiding.
And happy, like Hemingway. So I hope you like this tour. If you want to support us, you can share this video. You can, of course, tip us. That's the link just below the video. And and to see us next week the subject will be the Roman Paris. That's going to be me and Florent. And we're going to continue on this series of Paris Best Places with the 6th, so that's going to be the week after that.
Yes, quite a program.
Quite a program, indeed. And yeah, and I think this weekend we're going to do a raclette, so we might do a little picture and say hello to you guys.
Of course, we will.
Thank you so
Merci beaucoup.
much.
Thanks for all your support.
Yes.
And see you soon, guys. There's a vaccine on the way, so we'll see you in 2021. That's for sure.
Yes. Okay. See you
Bye.
guys. Bye.